The crimson sun of Xylos bled across the jagged horizon, casting long skeletal shadows from the twisted metallic trees that clawed at the ochre sky. On this desolate world, scarred by centuries of relentless strip mining, lived Kaelen, a scavenger as weathered and unforgiving as the landscape itself. His life was a relentless cycle of sifting through the discarded husks of mining droids and forgotten settlements, searching for anything of value he could trade for synth rations and the fleeting warmth of a recycled energy cell. Kaelen was a ghost, a shadow flitting through the skeletal remains of a forgotten industry. His face, etched with the harsh lines of survival, was framed by greasy, matted hair the color of rust. His eyes, however, held a flicker of something more than just desperation. A spark of stubborn defiance, a refusal to be completely extinguished by the bleakness that surrounded him. He carried a battered pulse rifle, a relic from a conflict long past, and a worn satchel filled with the tools of his trade, a multi-tool, a scanner, and a handful of energy flints. One cycle, while scavenging near the ruins of an old refinery, Kaelen stumbled upon something that promised to break the monotony of his existence. Deep within a collapsed tunnel, partially buried beneath a mountain of slag, he found a deactivated probe droid, its metallic shell dented and scarred. Most scavengers would have dismissed it as junk, another piece of useless scrap. But Kaelen's scanner picked up a faint energy signature emanating from within the droid, a signature unlike anything he had encountered before. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and desperation, Kaelen spent days painstakingly excavating the droid. He worked through the perpetual twilight, the only sound the rasping of his breath and the clang of his tools against metal. Finally, he managed to pry open the droid's damaged casing. Inside, nestled amongst the fried circuits and broken wires, he found it, a small crystalline shard pulsing with a soft ethereal light. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it was valuable. The energy signature was too potent, too unusual to be ignored. He carefully extracted the shard and placed it in a shielded container he usually reserved for rare isotopes. He had a feeling this was something that needed to be protected. News of Kaelen's discovery quickly spread through the squalid settlements of Xylos. Whispers turned into rumors, and rumors into outright demands. The local crime lord, a hulking brute named Vorlag, sent his enforcers to persuade Kaelen to hand over the shard. Vorlag controlled the flow of resources on Xylos, and he didn't take kindly to anyone who threatened his dominance. Kaelen refused. He didn't know why, but he couldn't bring himself to give up the shard. It felt important, more important than his own survival, which was a rare sentiment for a man who had spent his life constantly fighting for it. He knew he couldn't stay on Xylos. Vorlag's reach was too extensive. He needed to get off-world, to find someone who could tell him what the shard was and what it was capable of. He decided to seek out a contact, a smuggler named Lyra, who was known for her ability to navigate the treacherous space lanes beyond Xylos. Finding Lyra was no easy task. She moved like a phantom, appearing and disappearing without a trace. But Kaelen knew her weakness information. He spent his meager savings bribing informants and scouring the local data networks, eventually uncovering a lead that pointed to a hidden docking bay on the outskirts of the largest mining depot. He arrived at the docking bay under the cover of darkness, the crimson sun having finally dipped below the horizon. The air hung heavy with the stench of fuel and decay. He found Lyra's ship, a battered freighter called the Stardust Drifter, nestled amongst a cluster of derelict vessels. Lyra was waiting for him, leaning against the hull of her ship, a blaster pistol holstered at her hip. She was a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a cynical smile. She sized Kaelen up in an instant, recognizing the desperation in his gaze. "I hear you have something I might be interested in." Kaelen showed her the shard. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "Lyra, where did you find that?" Kaelen told her about the probe droid, the collapsed tunnel, and the growing interest from Vorlag. Lyra listened intently, her expression becoming increasingly grim. "Lyra, That's a Kaelen crystal. They're incredibly rare and incredibly powerful. Legend says they can amplify latent abilities, unlock hidden potential. Kaelen, abilities? What abilities? I'm just a scavenger. Lyra, everyone has abilities, Kaelen. Some are just buried deeper than others. And Vorlag wants it, which means it's worth more than just a few credits. Lyra agreed to take Kaelen off-world, but she warned him that it wouldn't be cheap. She needed fuel, supplies, and a hefty bribe for the port authorities. Kaelen offered her everything he had, including a share of the profits from the shard. As they prepared for departure, Vorlag's enforcers arrived. They stormed the docking bay, their blaster rifles blazing. A chaotic firefight erupted, the air filled with the whine of energy bolts and the clang of ricocheting metal. Kaelen, surprisingly, held his own. Years of surviving on Xylos had honed his instincts and reflexes. He moved like a shadow, using the wreckage as cover, returning fire with deadly accuracy. Lyra, equally skilled, fought alongside him, her blaster spitting death. They managed to fight their way onto the Stardust Drifter, but not without taking casualties. Lyra sustained a minor wound to her arm, and the ship took several hits. They powered up the engines and blasted off, leaving Vorlag's enforcers stranded in the dust. As they jumped into hyperspace, Kaelen felt a strange sensation, a tingling warmth spreading through his body. He looked down at his hands and saw a faint ethereal glow emanating from his fingertips. The Kaelen crystal was working. Their journey took them to Nar Shaddaa, a sprawling spaceport teeming with smugglers, bounty hunters, and other denizens of the underworld. Lyra had a contact on Nar Shaddaa, an old scholar named Master Tesler, who was rumored to be an expert on ancient artifacts. Tesler confirmed Lyra's assessment of the Kaelen crystal. He explained that the crystal could unlock dormant psychic abilities, but warned that it was a dangerous process. The crystal amplified not only the good, but also the dark, potentially overwhelming the user. Kaelen, however, was determined to unlock his potential. He was tired of being a scavenger, a survivor. He wanted to be something more. He underwent Tesler's training, learning to focus his mind and control the flow of energy within his body. He discovered that he possessed a natural aptitude for telekinesis, the ability to move objects with his mind. As his powers grew, so did the danger. Vorlag, relentless in his pursuit, he hired a team of bounty hunters to hunt down Kaelen and retrieve the Kaelen crystal. A final confrontation was inevitable. Vorlag and his bounty hunters cornered Kaelen and Lyra in a dingy cantina on the... A fierce battle ensued, the cantina erupting in chaos. Kaelen, using his newfound abilities, disarmed and incapacitated several of the bounty hunters. Lyra, ever resourceful, used the environment traps and ambushes. Finally, Kaelen faced Vorlag. The crime lord was a formidable opponent, but Kaelen was no longer the weak scavenger he once was. He used his telekinesis to hurl objects at Vorlag, deflecting his blaster bolts with ease. In the end, Kaelen managed to overpower Vorlag, using his abilities to pin him against a wall. He could have killed him. He had the power, but he didn't. He had seen too much death, too much violence. He simply disarmed Vorlag and left him to the mercy of the Nar Shaddaa underworld. With Vorlag defeated, Kaelen was finally free. He decided to leave Nar Shaddaa and travel the galaxy, using his abilities to help those in need. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew that he was no longer the same man who had scavenged for scraps on Xylos. The Kaelen crystal had changed him, unlocked his potential, and given him a purpose. He was no longer a ghost, but a beacon of hope in a galaxy shrouded in darkness.